If you are planning to survive the next supply chain collapse on a window box full of lettuce, you are already dead. I know that sounds harsh, but the math doesn't care about your optimism. In a grid-down scenario, or an enforced quarantine like the one we are simulating today, a salad isn't a meal, it's flavoured water. To stay alive, you need energy, and energy takes mass. Most apartment preppers fill their limited square footage with low-calorie garnishes, thinking they are farming. They aren't. They are gardening for a hobby while starving to death in slow motion. Today, we are going to dismantle the fantasy of the urban Eden and replace it with a biological engine designed for one thing: keeping your metabolic furnace burning when the grocery stores are burning. We are running a simulation of a level 4 autonomous blockade. The premise is simple. You are trapped in a 10th floor apartment. The streets are patrolled by autonomous drones, programmed to enforce a total curfew. You cannot leave. No food is coming in. You have your stored dry goods, rice, beans, pasta, but those are finite. You need to supplement them to extend your timeline. If you want to understand how to turn a balcony into a calorie pump without alerting the sensors outside, you need to secure your spot in this briefing right now. Pay attention, because we aren't just planting seeds, we are engineering time. Let's look at your neighbour, Unit 10B. Let's call him Dave. Dave was prepared, or so he thought. When the blockade drones first established the perimeter, Dave felt smug. He had spent years curating a beautiful vertical garden on his balcony. He had trellises of climbing spinach, rows of radishes, and pots of artisanal peppers. For the first 2 weeks, Dave ate fresh salads every day. But by week 3, the reality of physics set in. Dave was consuming maybe 200 calories a day from his garden, but his body was burning 2,000 just to keep his heart beating and his body temperature up. I watched Dave through the peephole yesterday. He's pale. He's shivering, even though it's not cold. That's his body cannibalizing its own muscle tissue for fuel. He looks at his lush green balcony and he doesn't understand why he's dying. He's dying because he planted nutrients, not fuel. Dave's mistake is the standard error of the modern urbanite. When people panic buy seeds, they buy what they see in grocery stores: leafy greens, herbs, and tomatoes. These crops are popular because they grow fast and look impressive. In a hobby garden, yield is measured in freshness or flavour. In a siege, yield is measured in specific energy density. Dave filled his 20 square feet of sunlight with crops that consist of 95% water. He effectively turned his apartment into a very inefficient water filtration system. He didn't do the calorie math. He treated the apocalypse like a lifestyle blog, prioritizing variety and vitamins over the raw thermodynamics of survival. Here is the brutal arithmetic. An average adult male needs about 2,500 calories a day to maintain weight under stress. A pound of lettuce contains about 70 calories. To get your daily energy from leafy greens, you would need to eat roughly 35 pounds of plant matter every single day. That is physically impossible. Your stomach can't hold it, and you'd spend more energy digesting it than you'd gain. Even better crops like tomatoes or peppers are mostly water. A medium tomato is 20 calories. You'd need to eat 125 tomatoes a day to survive. Urban agriculture research from Chicago models confirms this. Rooftop gardens are fantastic for vitamins, but they cannot provide staple calories. In an apartment, space is your currency. You cannot afford to spend high-value currency on low-value return. You need density. Here is where the simulation gets darker. In our scenario, the drones patrolling the street are equipped with thermal imaging. They are looking for unauthorized biomass and heat signatures that indicate hoarding or overcrowding. Dave's lush, sprawling wall of greenery on the balcony? It transpires moisture. It creates a microclimate. On a thermal camera, a dense wall of leafy plants glows like a beacon against the cold concrete of the building. It signals life is here. By filling his balcony with high transpiration plants, Dave didn't just starve himself, he painted a target on his window. We need crops that keep a low thermal profile. Crops that keep their mass underground or inside the apartment, hidden from the senses. Contrast Dave with Unit 10F. You walk into 10F and it doesn't look like a garden. There are no trellises visible from the window. Instead, the floor is lined with heavy, opaque 20-litre utility buckets. The occupant, Sarah, is kneeling beside one. She isn't pruning leaves, she's digging. The drones buzz outside, a low mechanical hum scanning the facade. Sarah ignores them. She reaches deep into the dark soil of the bucket and pulls out a dense, ugly lump of gold. A potato. It weighs nearly half a pound. She pulls out another, and another. She isn't harvesting a salad garnish, she is harvesting a meal. A real meal. Boiled, mashed, consumed. She feels the warmth spreading in her gut, actual glucose hitting her bloodstream. She isn't shivering. Most people fail at growing potatoes indoors because they treat them like houseplants. They put a seed potato in a small terracotta pot and water it. The plant grows tall, falls over, and produces maybe 2 tiny tubers the size of marbles. It's a waste of time. Or they plant them in the ground floor courtyard, which is suicide in this scenario because the courtyard is a kill zone for the drones. The failure comes from a lack of understanding of the potato's biology. Potatoes don't just grow from the bottom, they grow from the buried stem. If you don't give them vertical room to expand, you are strangling your own food supply before it starts. Let's talk numbers. Potatoes are your calorie workhorse. Professional growers can hit yields of 4 kilograms per square metre. In an optimised bucket system, you can actually beat field density because you control the soil depth perfectly. You need large containers, 20 litres minimum. Fabric grow bags are excellent for drainage, but in our drone scenario, plastic buckets retain water better and are easier to move silently. You plant 2 seed potatoes at the bottom, and as the green stem grows, you add more soil, earthing up. This encourages the plant to send out more underground runners, which become more potatoes. A single square metre of balcony space filled with deep buckets can yield 8 to 12 kilograms of tubers per season. That is nearly 10,000 calories. It won't feed you forever, but it provides a week of full energy or a month of critical heavy carb supplementation to stretch your rice stores. Here is the tactical snag with potatoes: soil volume. To grow 10 kilos of food, you are managing 50 kilos of dirt. In a lockdown, you cannot walk out to the dumpster with bags of spent soil. The drones recognise the pattern of waste disposal as human activity. If you dump the soil over the balcony, you create a visual debris field on the street below. A dead giveaway that Unit 10F is occupied and active. You have to revitalise and reuse that soil inside the apartment. You need a system to compost your own waste, paper, cardboard, food scraps, back into those buckets without creating a smell that vents into the hallway. The smell of rotting compost is distinct. If the building's ventilation is monitored, methane sensors will pick it up. You have to seal it. Week 6 of the blockade. You have calories. You have your rice, your beans, and your bucket potatoes. Your stomach is full. But you wake up one morning and your joints ache. A deep, bruising pain. You brush your teeth and the sink turns pink. Your gums are bleeding. You press on your skin, and the indentation stays there for seconds too long. This isn't starvation, this is malnutrition. It's the silent killer of the prepared. You have fuel, but your biological machinery is breaking down because you lack the catalysts to run it. Scurvy isn't an ancient history lesson. It is a biological inevitability when fresh food stops. And you can't exactly order a bottle of multivitamins from Amazon when the delivery drones are shooting on site. Most preppers assume they have this covered with a stockpile of supplements. I have a bottle of vitamin C, they say. And that works. For a while. But pills expire. They degrade in heat. And psychically, swallowing a chalky tablet every morning doesn't trick your brain into thinking it has eaten fresh food. The psychological decay of eating only beige cooked mush for 40 days leads to appetite fatigue. People in siege scenarios often stop eating even when they have food, simply because the palate exhaustion is so severe. The reaction to rely solely on chemistry fails because it ignores the biological imperative for complex, fresh phytonutrients. This is where microgreens stop being a hipster garnish and start being a medical necessity. Microgreens are seedlings harvested at the first true leaf stage. They are nutrient bombs. Red cabbage microgreens, for instance, can have 6 times the vitamin C and 40 times the vitamin E of the mature vegetable. A standard 10 by 20 inch tray requires less than 2 inches of soil. You can harvest a tray of radishes or peas in 7 to 10 days. One tray gives you about 300 to 500 grams of biomass. It's almost 0 calories, but it is pure micronutrient density. You don't eat them for energy, you eat them to keep your blood vessels from falling apart. You stack these trays on shelving units. They are your vitamin factory. The problem with microgreens is they need light. Intense light. If you put them on the windowsill, you are exposing yourself to the drones again. If you move them inside, you need LED grow lights. But have you ever seen a grow light from the street at night? It glows a distinct unnatural purple or blinding white. If your apartment window is pulsing with high-intensity light at 2 a.m, the drone algorithms will flag it as an anomaly, either a generator running or an illicit grow-op. In a lockdown, anomaly equals investigation. You need absolute light discipline. Blackout curtains are mandatory. You have to build light boxes, foiled-lined cabinets that contain the photons completely. You cannot let a single lumen escape your front door crack. It is day 45. Your apartment has shrunk. Between the potato buckets lining the hallway and the blacked-out shelving units humming with fans and lights in the bedroom, you are living in the machine. You have to turn sideways to get to the bathroom. The air is thick, humid, smelling of damp earth and chlorophyll. It feels claustrophobic, but it also feels alive. Outside, the city is silent, dead concrete. Inside, you hear the trickle of water, the rustle of pea shoots. You snap a fresh pea tendril and eat it raw. It tastes like rain. It tastes like defiance. The clutter is annoying, but every time you trip over a bucket, you are tripping over 3 days of life. The failure here is aesthetic. People want their survival garden to look like a spread in a design magazine. They want cute matching pots on a dedicated shelf. When the crisis hits, cute takes up too much space. Round pots are the enemy. They leave empty air gaps between them. You lose 20% of your growing volume just by using cylinders instead of squares. People also fail to use the vertical space. They put plants on the floor, ignoring the 6 feet of air above them. In a 500 square foot apartment, you don't have a floor plan, you have a cubic volume. If you aren't farming the air, you are wasting the asset. You need to think in layers. Calories first, nutrients second. The floor is for the heavyweights. That's where your 20-litre potato buckets live. They need the stability. The middle layer, waist to eye level, is for your microgreen racks. This is your high maintenance zone, where you are watering and harvesting daily. The top layer? That's for storage or low light drying of herbs. You need to use square containers to maximise soil volume per square inch. Stackable industrial crates are superior to garden pots. You also need to stagger your planting. If you plant all your potatoes on day 1, you harvest them all on day 90, and you have nothing in between. You need to plant a new bucket every week and sow a new tray of microgreens every 3 days. Continuous output. The hidden enemy of the indoor farmer is humidity. You have brought hundreds of pounds of wet soil and transpiring leaves into a sealed box. The humidity in your apartment will spike to 80 or 90%. In a normal world, you'd open a window. In a drone blockade, opening a window breaks the thermal seal and noise discipline. High humidity breeds black mold behind your drywall. It breeds respiratory infections. If you get a fungal lung infection while hiding from authorities, you can't go to a hospital. You need airflow, but it has to be internal. You need fans moving air constantly. You might even need to run a dehumidifier, but that costs power. It's a balancing act. Dry enough to keep the walls clean, wet enough to keep the potatoes alive. If you smell must, you are losing. Let's go back to the rice. You have 50 pounds of white rice. It keeps you alive. But after 2 months, the texture of plain rice makes you gag. Your brain rebels. It creates a cortisol response just looking at the bowl. You need a disruptor. You walk over to a small, unassuming pot in the corner, your morale garden, a chili pepper plant. You harvest 1 small red cayenne. You chop it into the rice. The heat, the capsaicin, shocks your system. It releases endorphins. Suddenly, the meal isn't a chore, it's an event. The burning sensation is the only thing you felt in weeks that isn't fear. Preppers underestimate morale. They calculate calories and vitamins, but forget psychology. History is full of sieges where people gave up not because they were completely out of food, but because the misery became intolerable. A diet without flavour destroys the will to persevere. The failed reaction is to view herbs and spices as luxuries. They are not. They are force multipliers for your staple grains. If you can make the rice taste like Thai basil chicken one night and spicy chili the next, you trick your brain into thinking the situation is normal. You don't need a lot of space for flavour, but you need the right crops. Basil, cilantro and mint grow like weeds and can be harvested continuously. Hot peppers are the king of survival crops because a single plant provides months of seasoning. You don't need calories from these, you need intensity. 1 square foot dedicated to a chili plant offers a higher return on investment for your mental health than another square foot of potatoes. Dwarf varieties are key here. Basket of fire peppers or Tiny Tim tomatoes. They stay under 12 inches tall but produce hundreds of fruits. They fit on the small shelves where a 5-gallon bucket won't go. This is how you optimize the margins of your space. Here is a threat vector nobody thinks about. Noise. Gardening is surprisingly loud. Shoveling soil, dragging pots across the floor, the clink of ceramic on ceramic. In a silent building where half the residents are gone and the other half are hiding, sound travels through the concrete structure. If the unit below you hears the rhythmic scraping of a shovel at 3 a.m, they know you are up to something. They might think you are digging a hole through the floor. They might report you to the patrols just to get a reward or a food ration. You need to garden silently. Use plastic tools, not metal. Put felt pads on the bottom of every bucket. Do your heavy work during thunderstorms or when the drones are doing low flybys to mask the sound. Day 60. The water pressure in the building just dropped to zero. The municipal pumps have finally failed. This is the escalation point. Your potato plants are thirsty. You are thirsty. But because you have been harvesting microgreens, your hydration needs are slightly lower than your neighbours. Because you have potatoes, you have moisture-dense food, not just dry rice that requires water to cook. You are not independent of the system. Nobody is fully independent in an apartment, but you have built a buffer. While Unit 10B is banging on the pipes in panic, alerting every sensor on the block, you are calm. You have options. You have bought yourself another week. The ultimate failure is the delusion of self-sufficiency. You cannot grow all your calories in an apartment. It is mathematically impossible unless you own the whole floor. People who think, I will just grow my own food, give up when they realise they can't grow enough for a full diet. They let the perfect be the enemy of the good. The goal isn't to replace the grocery store. The goal is to supplement your storage. The garden is the fresh element that makes the dry storage viable. It's the difference between surviving for 2 months and thriving for 3. Don't aim for homesteading. Aim for life extension. Let's review the final loadout. In a standard 1-bedroom apartment with a balcony, you can reasonably fit 10 20-litre buckets and 2 shelving units of microgreens. The buckets give you roughly 40,000 calories per growing cycle, about 20 days of total food for one person, or a 25% supplement for 80 days. The microgreens provide 100% of your vitamin C, A, and K needs indefinitely, as long as you have seeds. This setup doesn't save you forever, but it bridges the gap. It keeps you strong enough to scavenge, strong enough to fight, or strong enough to wait for the rescue that might be coming. It turns your apartment from a prison cell into a life support capsule. There is one final danger: the smell of harvest. When you cut fresh greens, when you dig up earthy potatoes, when you cook them, you are releasing volatile organic compounds. In a starving building, the smell of food is more dangerous than the drones. It travels under the door. It drives neighbours to madness. If they smell roasting potatoes, they will come, and they won't knock. You must cook with the windows sealed. You must consume your harvest quickly and quietly. Your garden is your secret. The moment it becomes public knowledge, it ceases to be your garden and becomes the community's loot drop. So, you have the potatoes, you have the greens, you have the blackout curtains and the silent shovel. You can survive the calories. But remember the water pressure drop I mentioned? That wasn't just a narrative device. That is the next phase of the collapse. Plants can't grow without water, and neither can you. You have secured your food, but you have just increased your water footprint by 300% to keep that garden alive. The drones are now scanning for moisture accumulators. The game has changed again. If you don't know how to harvest water from the humidity in the air without triggering the thermal sensors, your garden is about to become a dried-out graveyard. The hunger is solved, but the thirst is coming. I am releasing the water extraction protocol in the next briefing, showing you how to turn that humid, mold-prone apartment air back into drinking water before the dehydration sets in. If you want to be alive when that file unlocks, you need to be subscribed to the curriculum. Don't let your garden die because you didn't plan for the drought. Secure your spot. Stay hidden. You survived the simulation. Now survive the reality. Equip yourself at the official supply depot. Because if the world is going to end, you might as well look prepared.